Hello everybody, it's I, Flamingo Writer here, back again for another Magical Girl podcast video. And what better way to start off this video by talking about one that's relevant for what you're about to see today. If you remember from May of 2024, I've did a Magical Girl podcast on the show Madoka Magica. It's one of the darkest Magical Girl shows out there, despite its cutesy art style. And well, oh sure, you could argue that it's the darkest Magical Girl show out there. I personally don't really agree with that, though admittedly that is kind of a testament for what you're about to. However, one thing that kind of bothers me about its fans is that a lot of people have started saying the same thing I said in my Wedding Peach video. Namely that every time some people have seen a Magical Girl series, they're automatically going to assume it's been accused of ripped off of. But I want you all to pay attention from what I'm about to say to you guys, because while I do admire Magical Girl shows, and especially Madoka Magica, I don't think I praise it as much as some people have during that time period. While you could argue it's the darkest Magical Girl show out there, while there are some that can compete against it, I really feel like it's best to say you can't say something's been ripped off if you just look at it for its own style, and that's about it. Or better yet, just assume it when you just watch nothing from it and just gather what it is. As someone like me who likes Madoka Magica, I'm not here to say that it's not legendary. A lot of people are gonna praise it and still accuse other shows of being ripped off of something. That's true about anything really, but when it comes to my Magical Girl podcast, someone has to put their foot. And yes, while I do realize that there are going to be those detractors who will just praise it because it's one of the greatest things out there, I don't want to treat anything I talk about like, say, it's gift from the gods or something. While I do love Magical Girl shows, and in extension, its genre, that doesn't mean I'll like everything of its genre. I have criticized more Magical Girl shows in my podcast, if you've realized, but today we're looking at one on that I think I need to at least break it down to you. See, you may have noticed I've talked about to Madoka Magica and said in my Magical Girl site video that I said that was part of a package deal. Unfortunately, I made a mistake in there. Yeah, I thought at first Magical Girl site it was, and as well as Magical Girl Apocalypse were part of the package deal, but Magical Girl Apocalypse was the only one that was not part of the package deal, and thank God, because after seeing videos about how bad this manga is, I'd rather not touch on it, and if they do have an adaptation, oh boy, would it get so hard to watch at times. No, in this case, it was actually a different series called Magical Girl Raising Project. But really, how can you go wrong with a cutesy style like this? And believe it or not, that's sadly one of the reasons why people just assume it's a Madoka Magica ripoff. And just because of its cutesy art style, and because it's a horror series in its own right. But just because something is cutesy and horror related does not always mean that's going to be a Madoka Magica ripoff. Like I said in my Wedding Peach video, that's like saying that if I watch something like Spider-Man, I'm just going to make the argument that say, oh, it's a ripoff of Superman just because they're both superheroes. Now, if that doesn't find it tedious enough, well, strap yourselves in, folks, because we're going to download Magical Girl Raising Project and see if this is a Magical Girl ripoff of Madoka Magica, or see if they have something else. So for those of you who don't know what Magical Girl Raising Project is, well, it was based on the manga by the same name by Asari Adoro and illustrated by Maru Tenyo. And as you can probably guess by now, yeah, this is one of those stories that happen to have that detail to it. However, it started out as a popular manga series, later on adapted into a franchise. Now, this isn't anything new for Magical Girl shows, especially when it comes to having a franchise in of itself. Hell, from what I can gather, Precure is still running today, and that became a huge Magical Girl franchise. So just because they're trying to do something new with the Magical Girl franchise doesn't mean they can't do anything with that. But whereas Precure is a lot more lighthearted and a lot more kid-friendly, and Precure, Magical Girl Raising Project is a franchise like Madoka Magica, just with a dark edge and basically downloading an RPG game. However, it's then later revealed that while the first season has lasted from 2016, we're getting another season, or at least a spin-off season, and I can't really tell because Wikipedia was being very scared. vague about it. And yeah, it comes out next year in 2026. So either the creators were really hung up about it that they thought we might as well make a second season 10 years later, or something along those lines. I really can't tell, because if I'm being dead serious, I feel like this is just horrible in its own execution when it comes to being the production and all that. Seriously, it's bad enough we still don't have part 7 of JoJo yet. No, I'm still not over that yet. However, where Madoka Magica got a lot of praise and something like, say, positive reception, even though there are some people who say it's overrated, that's really not something I would say that's really what you can say about its own favor. But as for Magical Girl side, where it got backlash and negative feedback, I think it's safe to say Magical Girl Raising Project may be one of the more divisive. Some people say it's good, others say it's bad, and some are saying it could be better than its predecessor. I think you could fall, under whatever category you can fall under, but I'll tell you guys my thoughts about it when we get to it. And yeah, let's talk about what the series is about. Our main story begins with our main character, Yuki Himikawa, a shy yet still awkward girl who seems to be following some kind of mobile game that's called Magical Girl Raising Project, an RPG game aimed that's on her mobile phone so she can play in order to become a magical girl, and as such uses that in order to play with some people online while still getting teased about it. Yeah, unlike Magical Girl side, at least she gets teased about it, not something like, say, oh, you get bullied because we're bullies. Yeah, I'm still not over that. As you can tell from there, Kayuki, after playing the game and winning some kind of prize within herself, she becomes the alter ego herself, Snow White. And yes, before you ask, I'm glad they made her a lot more likable than Snow White we got this year for a movie. And it's here where we see this little creature known as Fave. Yes, that's really their name, Fave. And as such, Fave here does more than what you may realize. Meaning that, well, he really does give directions of what the girls can do. And it's not just Snow White who joined this game. There are multiple girls who join this here game, and as you can probably guess, Faith instructs them what to do. See, when you're a magical girl in this game, you have to at least earn something like prizes and something like candies and other magical girl shows you see them have. Earn their own weapon, their goodies, and basically anything you can get your paws on. And as you can probably guess, this game is not all it's cracked up to be, but as you can probably guess with the abundance of characters, Magical Girl Raising Project does have one thing. See, despite the entire cast having its own cast members of what they can do, they decide to divide them up. But since there's too many, Faith decides to cut them in half. One and off after another, and so much and so forth. But despite Faith being, well, a mascot, he really does whatever he can do in order to do so. Well, basically like Kyubey, except more dangerous than what you may expect. Despite what you may think here, though, it's here when I have to say, as you may have guessed by now, yeah, these are when the girls have to survive in order to go so far as to do whatever they can. And before you say anything, yeah, this is where things start going out of control, because the girls don't really do whatever they can in order to do what they have to do in order to become the new mascot's own master, but as well as having the game more of a survivor rank. Together, the girls will do whatever they can. And it's not just girls that play this game. It can be anyone, from ranging to young kids to little teenage kids, and once more, they can have young adults and as well as boys. You hear that, gentlemen? You get to have fan service. My god, that sounds dirty. And yeah, as you can probably guess by now, the magical girls themselves have to do whatever it takes in order to survive this game. And by surviving, I mean something more than that. See, this game is all over the place. Whether you quit or hey, you have to at least give up after that, or something on the lines of if you just have to, well, go ahead and lose the game, or something along those lines, they really kill you in this game. Yeah, this game is quite fatal if it wasn't obvious. And it's not just that. It's not just fatal in the game. You practically die in real life as well. Don't know how that works or whoever designed this game, but okay. And it's pretty shaky too because you get to see how these girls will try their best to survive as time goes on, even if we have to try to do whatever we can in order to make that out. So, yeah. Even in spite of all of that, the girls do whatever they can in order to survive so they can become the mascot anyways. But knowing this series, that's not always going to happen. And I'll explain. Now, when you put that all on paper, it sounds like this actually does sound like a game that, while I wouldn't recommend playing it if it was in real life, which I'm glad it isn't, I think it's safe to say that this game really did the unpredictable, which, if you know anything about me, sometimes I actually don't mind the unpredictable when it comes to writing, especially with the magical girls trying to do what they can to survive. And for a series like this, even for a mobile game, I kind of like what they do with it anyways though. But I might as well balance out what I like about it and what I don't like about it. Because this here series has more of a balance range, so let's talk about it. First of all, despite the cutesy art style and all such, it does look basic enough, and despite the weird outfits that the girls are wearing, it looks believable enough to actually say that at least they have noticed that it does take somewhat of inspiration of Madoka Magica, the cutesy art style and a horror aspect of something, but these aren't really witches per se. They're just mostly magical girls just trying to do whatever they can in order to survive. And what's more, I kind of do like some of the battle scenes they put in here, but knowing that this is a series with girls fighting off each other, I'm kind of reluctant in knowing why they planned it this way, but okay, that's something to succeed. And I have to say, even if it does seem like they're trying to make a story about what would happen, it does feel like it had everything going for it. I'm all for having a Magical Girl series that had something like this, and I do commend them. They do whatever it takes in order to make this series stand out, especially when it comes to the fighting aspects, and still trying their best to survive in this game. You really want these girls to do whatever they can in order to succeed, so it makes perfect sense why they were trying to do that, and as you can probably imagine, they're doing whatever it takes in order to make that come to life. I mean, think about it. If this year's series is one of those cases where they can do that, I'm all for it, especially when it comes to something like this. A battle series trying to make the girls survive into something like the girls trying to find their way to make sure that they don't die from any of this, even if it means they can't quit or anything. That does sound like a good idea on paper, and I'm all for. Unfortunately, I hate to be this person, and I really have to say it, this series seemed to have a lot more problems than a Landful could ever handle. So let's go over them one by one. From what I gather, as much as I hate to say it, this series took me only 3 days to binge. Yeah, it's only 12 episodes long, so at least they actually did something with it, unlike, say, High Guardian Spice or the other series I've covered before now, Magical Girl Sites. But unfortunately, it feels like there's something wrong with it. And a lot of it has to do with what a lot of fans have said about this year's series, the pacing. Now, the pacing is not the worst thing out there in the world, but I want you all to at least try to bear with me for what I'm trying to say to you guys. So imagine this for a second. When you're having a bunch of characters, it doesn't matter how many, guess how long this year's series tries to make sure you get focused on each of these characters. More than you may know. Yeah, when it comes right down to it, the characters that we do focus on happen too quickly. Like, you get a bunch of characters, like, say, I don't know, like 2 or 3 characters, and then after that we go to another side plot where they have 2 characters, and another side plot, and another side plot. It goes so far as to say, it kind of feels like one of those soap operas that you know that they have very limited story to do, and a lot of time, but unlike a soap opera where you can say you can stretch out the story as much as you want to, for as long as they want to stay with those soap operas, this one only has 12 episodes, and the worst part is, there are so many girls in this year's show. Count how many girls are in this show. if you guess something like 15, 16, 17, maybe more, I think you're on the right track. Yeah, this series seems to have this notion where every time there's going to be more magical girls, they have to either cut them in half or, worse yet, they have to kill them. I mean, I can understand the cutting in half thing, but why do you have to murder them? Surely there's got to be some way you could at least do this without having to cut them in half, like just using their weapons. And the sad part is, there are multiple storylines that you wish you could at least get some established, but here's the problem with that. Some people have said this before, and while we do get some characters getting established, they don't really get established too much to the point where they jump to one thing after the next. So compare this to Madoka Magica for a sec. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, but no, I'm not going to the play the roots. Oh, this series is a lot better because it's gift from the gods. I'm not one of those people. Remember that one scene from Madoka Magica in episode 3? The very last scene where we see Mommy getting her head decapitated? It may have been scary and what the fuck out of nowhere, but at least in that defense, you can kind of say, in that defense, you know what Mommy was like as a character, and what's more, her character, as short-lived as it was for the series, you got invested into seeing what she was like. She was caring, friendly, and while she did do her rights, especially when it comes to becoming a magical girl, she still gave her character more than what it is, though. You got to feel sorry for both Madoka and her friend when it comes right down to it. And even if you don't feel sorry, you can at least understand this would probably happen if it was real, if someone that you were knowing for about only a short amount of time, and still feel pretty sorry at the end. You still got in the investment of both Mommy and the series as the time goes on, and as it slowly builds up, you get that. Whereas this series, not only do we see characters die, but once you get used to a character, good luck liking them for a change, which is sad because most of the deaths in here just come right the fuck out of nowhere. I get that happened in Madoka Magica, but at least it only happened, like, say, what, only once, and you're still being invested about what these monsters can do? Here, though, it's more like, say, you can like these characters for, like, a brief second, but, oops, we have to kill them because screw you, I guess. You know, it's at times like this where I have to wonder why so many people get the feeling that killing characters out of nowhere reminds me of that, and then I'm reminded of another series, Akame ga Kill or Elfen Lied, because if there's one thing that really bothers me is that you have to kill characters because why the hell not? If I can understand if they were criminals or something like murderers or anything like that, I can understand why they have to get killed off right away, but these are supposed to be innocent girls. Like, more than they are. Okay, what here in the picture I'm showing you is Sota. And for those who aren't aware, Sota was supposed to be working with Thin Kayuki. And as you can probably guess, show of hands, how many people say that he got murdered in the series? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, he does get murdered in the series, which makes me wonder why the hell why are they doing that? Again, this is supposed to establish what these characters are like, but nope, you have to at least get them killed off because screw you again. And it's pretty obvious that this series doesn't really give you that much to work with. Though, admittedly, I think it's safe to say that both Sota and Niyuki's characters are while you could argue they got the most development, it goes without saying they don't even do much with their characters beyond shipping. And I guess you could say at least they were there for each other, but after Sota gets killed off, yeah, you can imagine it doesn't end well for her Kayuki because she doesn't have her one friend with her. Especially because, well, there's not much I can say about it beyond they're just doing this for that. I'm not so sure if it's just me, but while I admit the killings are pretty, well, intense, I also really feel like they feel kind of hilarious at times. Like, I know this is not supposed to be funny or dark humor or anything like that, but it's like, oops, this character is getting killed off, whoosh! And I feel pretty terrible for laughing at something like this. Not out loud, like say LOL loud laughing, but I mean like say, oh my god, that came out of nowhere laughing. Like something like a chuckle or a snicker. It doesn't really work well, and I do apologize for that. So, what else is there to say about this here series? Well, I guess I could go over Kayuki's character when she goes into the game and plays herself as the ideal magical girl Snow White, but That's not exactly gonna say a lot. For what it's worth, I can at least say she's basically Madoka, just with not as much character development. And say what you want about Madoka being the, well, crybaby a lot of people say she is, or sometimes annoying. Seriously, one user said she was annoying, which I can kind of understand to an extent. But at least you got invested into Madoka's character. What's more, while she does do something you're not expecting in the series, I feel like it's only fitting that Kaguki is one of the most underdeveloped characters out there. Granted, nowhere near as, say, Aya from Magical Girl Site, where she goes back and forth with her character saying, oh, I can do this, and later on going back on her word. No, thankfully she doesn't go that far, but I guess you could say that most of the time in the series, she's just grieving. And I can understand that to an extent, but he grieves so hard that it's really so badly that she has to go through with it by just going through episode from episode to episode and so on. And keep in mind, we have 12 episodes. 12 episodes in this year's series, which makes me wonder what would happen if they did stretch it out, which I'll come back to at the end of this video. But there is another character I have yet to talk about. And that character is Ripple. As much as her outfit is more of the fan servicey approach, seriously, I have no idea what the fuck kind of outfit this is supposed to be. I really feel like her character is, well, it's Homura, just without a care in the world, except when it's almost too late. Woohoo. Yeah, as much as I hate to go back to Madoka Magica, at least Homura actually got more character development as time went on, but here Ripple is basically Homaru, but basically more of a stuck-up own girl. I get that she didn't want to become a magical girl and do whatever it takes, but that just begs the question: why the fuck did you play the game in the first place, girl? And it's also pretty obvious that she doesn't get as much development. It doesn't come in until her friend or sidekick or whatever, even though they're supposedly friends, and when her friend gets killed off, right, unrightfully, and it's pretty clear to me that we're supposed to think that she really does care, even if that's all it takes. My heart does go out for people who do like her, but I'm just gonna come out and say it. I choose Homura over this character. It doesn't help that it's more like, say, yeah, okay, whatever. I get that she's mostly supposed to be like she doesn't give a care in the world or something like that, which is one of those characters you see as a stoic nature, but fuck's sake, I can't help but get time flashbacks from High Going Spice, and that should not be. As much as I hate to say it, there's not much I can tell you guys about how I feel about this series, rather than it's really just that. So, do I call this a Madoka Magica ripoff? No, there are some differences here and there. I mean, aside from the horror aspect and the cutesy looks, I will say one thing. Maybe it's because there are just too many characters to get accustomed to, or maybe it's because I'm one of those people who says to myself that you can still have plenty of characters, but you have to remind yourself by the end of the day, pacing is crucial, development is crucial, and otherwise you wouldn't have it either way. Otherwise, I wouldn't pass judge it if anything to judge by. Yeah, I hate to say this, but I feel like Magical Girl Raising Project is not really anything bad per se. It does its own thing. An RPG game with magical girls in it sounds like it would be nice on paper, but the execution came off as, say, you're rushing yourself to cook. Let me put it to you this way. I love creativity, as do a lot of other people, as long as you don't shit over someone's creativity. But I really feel like it's safe to say that I really feel like the only way you're going to experience your creativity is if you do that. Experience it. Don't rush it. Don't underdevelop it. And what's more, don't try to brush it out like, say, this is supposed to be like that. It's like someone turned in their homework and realized, oh shit, I got to rush this essay really quickly. What do I write? And they just write down a pile of unpacing mess. As much as I hate to say it, I really feel bad for this here series not being more popular than it is. But you know what's even more depressing than that? I really still feel like this really did wasted its potential. As much as some people have not yet said it, I feel like this year's series would have benefited it more than that. But you know, now that I think about it, maybe if I was a writer writing this, I would benefit it for, say, well, 24 episodes. I mean, think about it. 12 episodes is a nice amount, but even with that said, I feel like they don't do anything with it. Say what you want about Madoka Magica and Magical Girl Site, the previous shows I've covered before now, but at least those shows had whatever they took. I mean, one of the latter of which didn't do anything, but if you've been on my channel for a long time, then you already know my drill. There's a difference between having that potential and running with that potential. I don't want to say that this year it should be long forgotten, but if you want to watch this tier series for yourself, then I'd say hey, you can watch it, but you're not gonna miss much afterwards. Trust me, after watching this, I kind of forgot about it by the end of the day, and I don't want that to happen. And again, I started this Magical Girl podcast because I want to recommend shows out there that can be watched or something like say you can still try to watch at your own leisure. Not to say this is the worst series out there, but it really did have its hiccups here and there. I'm not saying Magical Girl Raising Project was a bad series, but it's definitely not a good series in my opinion. In my opinion, it's just mediocre. Well, that's another series to get out of the way. Although, it's going to be Halloween soon, so I hope that come back next time as I delve into another anthology horror series. But one that may be longer than Pet Shop of Horrors was. So, until then, I thank you all so much for watching. See you all next time, and as always, stay flamingo-tastic. I'll see you all around.